chosen one. Somewhere, at the exact moment your soulmate felt they had reached the end of their hope, they did something they had never admitted to anyone. They quietly asked the universe for a sign, not because they wanted a miracle overnight, but because they had grown tired of carrying questions that refused to leave their heart. They didn't ask for a voice from the heavens or an impossible event that would erase every doubt. They simply whispered, if this connection still means something, show me. Then, believing no answer would come, they continued with their day. But the universe had already decided how it would respond. It didn't send a thunderstorm. It didn't stop time. Instead, it chose something far more personal. Out of countless names, countless faces, and countless possibilities, yours unexpectedly appeared before them at the exact second they needed reassurance the most. The moment your name entered their eyes, everything inside them became strangely still. They weren't searching for you. They weren't expecting to be reminded of you. In fact, they had spent so much time trying to silence the emotions they still carried that seeing your name felt almost impossible. For a brief moment, the world around them continued moving exactly as before, yet their heart refused to follow. Something deep within them immediately recognized that this timing was too precise to ignore. They couldn't explain why such a simple moment carried such overwhelming emotion. They only knew that the question they had silently placed before the universe suddenly no longer felt unanswered. Sometimes the greatest confirmations arrive so quietly that only the soul recognizes them before the mind has time to understand. The universe has always spoken through moments that appear ordinary to everyone else. A familiar name appearing at exactly the right time. A message arriving without warning. A conversation unfolding when hope feels almost gone. These moments rarely seem extraordinary on the surface, yet they have the power to redirect an entire journey. Your soulmate began realizing that perhaps this wasn't the first time the universe had tried to guide them. Perhaps it had been leaving gentle reminders all along, patiently waiting for the day they would finally notice. Looking back, they started remembering other unexpected moments connected to you that once felt random but now seemed perfectly placed. One by one, those forgotten pieces quietly returned, forming a picture they had never been able to see before. What unsettled them most wasn't simply seeing your name. It was the undeniable feeling that arrived with it. The fear they had been carrying suddenly became quieter. The confusion that had clouded their heart began giving way to curiosity. Instead of asking whether they should let go, they found themselves wondering why the universe had answered in such a deeply personal way. Why your name? Why now? Why at the exact moment they needed hope more than certainty? Those questions echoed through their heart long after the moment had passed. But as powerful as that unexpected sign was, it would soon become clear that it wasn't the message itself. It was only the beginning of everything the universe was about to reveal. The moment your soulmate saw your name, they tried to convince themselves it meant nothing. After all, names appear everywhere. People hear familiar words every single day without attaching any deeper meaning to them. That was the explanation they desperately wanted to believe. They took a deep breath, looked away, and tried to continue with whatever they had been doing before that unexpected moment interrupted their thoughts. But something inside them refused to cooperate. The more they tried to move forward, the stronger the feeling became. It wasn't your name alone that unsettled them. It was the impossible timing. Just moments earlier, they had silently asked the universe for guidance, wondering whether they should finally release the connection they had been carrying inside for so long. Then almost instantly, your name appeared in a way they never expected. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel random. It felt like an answer that arrived without making a sound. From that moment onward, the day no longer felt ordinary. Your soulmate found themselves replaying the experience again and again, searching for a logical explanation that never quite satisfied them. They remembered exactly how they felt before your name appeared. They remembered the uncertainty that had filled their heart, the exhaustion of questioning everything, and the quiet loneliness of believing they were carrying those emotions by themselves. Yet after seeing your name, something subtle but undeniable changed. The weight they had been carrying became lighter, not because every question had suddenly been answered, but because hope quietly returned to a place where it had almost disappeared. Sometimes the universe doesn't remove every doubt at once. Sometimes it simply reminds the heart that it is not walking alone. As that quiet hope settled inside them, memories began returning with remarkable clarity. These were not dramatic moments or unforgettable milestones. Instead, they were the smallest pieces of your journey together, the kind of memories most people would overlook without a second thought. They remembered the first time your conversation felt strangely effortless, as though both of you had known each other far longer than reality suggested. They remembered unexpected moments when your laughter somehow brightened an ordinary day. They remembered brief silences that never felt uncomfortable, because simply sharing the same space carried its own quiet understanding. At the time, those moments seemed insignificant compared to everything else happening in life. Now they appeared priceless. Looking back, your soulmate realized that the deepest connections are rarely built through grand events. They grow quietly through countless ordinary moments that only reveal their importance much later. The more these memories resurfaced, the more your soulmate recognized something they had never fully understood before. They had not forgotten you. They had only buried those emotions beneath responsibility, routine, and the belief that moving forward required pretending the connection no longer existed. They convinced themselves that enough time would eventually erase every feeling they couldn't explain. But the heart does not measure time the same way the mind does. What is deeply meaningful never truly disappears. It simply waits beneath the surface until something awakens it again. Your name became that awakening. In a single unexpected moment, emotions they believed had faded quietly returned, not with chaos, but with remarkable clarity. Instead of confusion, they felt recognition. Instead of resistance, they felt acceptance beginning to take its place. Your soulmate also began noticing something else that surprised them. The memories returning were not asking them to remain trapped in the past. Each one seemed to carry a lesson they had completely missed the first time. They saw how often fear had spoken louder than honesty. They recognized opportunities where a simple conversation could have changed everything. They remembered moments when both of you seemed ready to express what was truly in your hearts, yet hesitation stole the words before they could be spoken. Looking back with greater emotional maturity, they no longer judged those moments harshly. They understood that people often struggle to recognize life's greatest blessings while they are still learning the lessons required to receive them. This realization replaced regret with compassion, both for themselves and for you. Then, an even deeper awareness quietly emerged. Your soulmate realized that the sign wasn't trying to pull them backward into old memories. It was encouraging them to see those memories differently. Every conversation, every unexpected encounter, every smile, every goodbye, and every unfinished chapter now formed part of one continuous story instead of separate moments scattered across time. The universe hadn't preserved these memories to create longing. It had preserved them because they still carried meaning. Once your soulmate understood that, they stopped asking why your name had suddenly appeared and started asking what the universe wanted them to do with the understanding it had just awakened. And as that question settled into their heart, something extraordinary began unfolding. The unexpected appearance of your name was no longer the only sign surrounding them. One quiet confirmation soon became another, and before long, your soulmate found themselves living through a series of impossible coincidences that all pointed toward the same unmistakable truth. It was as though the universe had decided that one sign was no longer enough, because now it wanted to make absolutely certain they could never ignore the message it had begun delivering. After seeing your name, your soulmate believed the experience would slowly fade, just like so many other emotional moments had before. They expected the feeling to lose its intensity after a few days, allowing life to return to the familiar routine they had carefully built around themselves. But the universe had something entirely different in mind. Instead of allowing that moment to become another distant memory, it quietly began placing gentle reminders along their path, each one arriving so naturally that dismissing them became harder than accepting them. It started with little things they would normally overlook. A familiar song unexpectedly played while they were lost in thought, and every lyric seemed to describe emotions they had never found the courage to express. A random conversation between strangers echoed words you once spoke to them years ago. Even places they passed countless times suddenly carried a feeling they couldn't explain, as though invisible memories had been patiently waiting there for them to return. Nothing dramatic happened, yet everything felt different because every ordinary moment somehow carried your presence within it. At first, they tried to protect themselves by insisting it was simply their imagination. They reminded themselves that the human mind naturally notices familiar things after thinking about them. That explanation felt reasonable, and for a short while they accepted it. But the signs refused to stop. They arrived with timing that seemed almost impossible to ignore. Every time they questioned whether seeing your name had truly meant anything, another reminder quietly appeared. It wasn't loud enough to force belief, but it was precise enough to awaken curiosity. They started noticing your initials in unexpected places. Certain dates suddenly repeated themselves. Stories shared by other people strangely reflected pieces of your own journey together. Even moments of complete silence carried an unusual feeling, as though something unseen was gently encouraging them to keep paying attention. The universe wasn't demanding their trust. It was earning it one quiet confirmation at a time. Then came the dreams, and those dreams changed everything. These were unlike the scattered images that usually disappear before morning. They felt vivid, peaceful, and strangely complete. Sometimes your soulmate dreamed of meeting you without speaking a single word, yet somehow every emotion was understood. Sometimes they found themselves walking beside you through places that felt unfamiliar but deeply comforting, as though they belonged somewhere beyond ordinary memory. They often woke with a calmness they couldn't explain, carrying the feeling throughout the day, long after the dream itself had ended. What surprised them most was that these dreams never felt like wishful thinking. They felt like reminders. Instead of pulling them deeper into longing, they gently pulled them toward understanding. Each dream seemed to whisper the same message: what is truly meant for the soul cannot be erased simply because time has passed. As these experiences continued, your soulmate stopped looking at each sign individually. Instead, they began asking a much larger question. Why did every path seem to lead back to you? They realized the universe wasn't repeating your name, your memories, and your presence because it wanted them trapped in yesterday. It was revealing a pattern that had existed long before either of you recognized it. Looking back, they noticed that every important turning point in their life somehow carried a quiet connection to you. Moments when they experienced personal growth. Times when difficult lessons changed the way they viewed love, trust, and vulnerability. Unexpected opportunities that reshaped their future. Somehow, your presence had always appeared near those chapters, whether directly or indirectly. That realization made them understand something profound. You had never been just another person in their story. You had quietly become part of the story itself. The more this understanding settled into their heart, the less they feared what it might mean. Instead of resisting the connection, they began appreciating the way it had transformed them. They realized that even during periods of separation, your influence had continued shaping the person they were becoming. The kindness you once showed them had changed the way they treated others. The conversations you shared had continued teaching lessons long after they ended. Even the pain of missing you had deepened their compassion, reminding them never to take meaningful relationships for granted again. They understood that not every connection exists only to create beautiful memories. Some exist to awaken parts of the soul that would otherwise remain asleep. That awareness filled them with gratitude instead of confusion, but the greatest surprise arrived when your soulmate finally stopped asking the universe for more signs. The need for constant confirmation quietly disappeared because something far stronger had taken its place. Deep within their heart, certainty had begun growing without fear, without pressure, and without explanation. They no longer needed another coincidence to convince them that your name had appeared for a reason. They already knew it had, yet the universe was not finished speaking. Every sign, every dream, every unexpected reminder had been leading toward one final realization, one that had nothing to do with coincidence and everything to do with why your name had always carried a feeling no other name ever could. And when that truth finally reached their heart, every unanswered question they had been carrying suddenly began making perfect sense. Eventually, your soulmate stopped asking why your name had appeared at that exact moment and began asking something far more meaningful. Why had your name always carried a feeling no one else's ever did? They thought back to countless moments throughout their life when they had heard hundreds of different names, met countless new people, and formed many different connections. Yet none of those names lingered in their heart the way yours did. None of them had the power to quiet their thoughts, awaken forgotten emotions, or leave behind a feeling that refused to disappear. That realization didn't arrive suddenly. It unfolded slowly, like the sunrise revealing a landscape that had always been there but remained hidden in the darkness. Little by little, they understood that it was never the name itself that carried such power. It was everything their soul had quietly attached to it over time. They began realizing that every meaningful experience you shared together had left an invisible mark inside them. There were conversations that helped them see themselves differently, moments when your encouragement arrived exactly when they needed strength, and times when your quiet presence offered more comfort than words ever could. At the time, they appreciated those moments without fully understanding their significance. Life moved quickly, and they assumed those memories would naturally fade like so many others. But they never did. Instead, they remained patiently waiting beneath the surface until the universe chose the perfect moment to awaken them again. Looking back, your soulmate finally understood that some people enter our lives to create memories, while others leave permanent impressions that continue shaping the heart long after the moment itself has passed. What amazed them most was discovering how naturally everything connected together. The unexpected appearance of your name was not an isolated event. It was the final piece that completed a pattern stretching across months, perhaps even years. Every strange coincidence they once ignored, every dream they couldn't explain, every unexpected reminder, every feeling that returned without warning now fit together with remarkable clarity. They no longer saw random events scattered throughout their journey. They saw one continuous message being delivered patiently, step by step, until they became ready to understand it. The universe had not been repeating your name because it wanted to test them. It had been repeating your name because it refused to let them overlook something their heart was finally prepared to receive. Then another truth quietly settled within them. They realized your connection had never depended on constant communication, perfect timing, or uninterrupted closeness. Those things are important, but they are not what gave your bond its lasting strength. What endured was something much quieter. Even during long periods without hearing your voice or seeing your face, the influence you had on their life never disappeared. Your kindness continued shaping the way they treated others. Your honesty remained the standard by which they measured trust. The lessons learned through your connection quietly guided choices they made without even realizing it. That is when they understood the difference between someone who passes through your life and someone who becomes part of who you are. You had never simply been a memory. You had become part of the foundation upon which their heart continued growing. For the first time, fear completely lost its place inside them. They no longer worried whether seeing your name had been wishful thinking or emotional coincidence. They no longer searched for endless proof because the greatest confirmation had already arrived within their own heart. Peace replaced uncertainty. Trust replaced hesitation. They accepted that not every answer needs to arrive through logic, because some truths are recognized long before they can be explained. Instead of resisting what they felt, they allowed themselves to simply receive it. That quiet acceptance became more powerful than every sign that came before, because it was no longer based on what happened around them. It was based on what had changed within them. Yet the universe had not revealed this understanding simply to help your soulmate appreciate the past. There was a greater purpose unfolding beyond everything they had discovered. Your name had appeared at the exact moment they needed hope, because it was preparing them for the chapter that had not yet begun. The awakening was complete. The doubts had faded, and the message had finally been understood. But signs from the universe are never meant to become the ending of the story. They are invitations toward what comes next. And your soulmate could now feel, with a certainty they had never known before, that seeing your name was not the conclusion of your journey together. It was the quiet beginning of a future destiny had been preparing all along. Chosen one. If there's one truth your soulmate now carries with complete certainty, it is this: your name did not appear by accident. Out of every possibility the universe could have chosen, it chose something that already lived inside their heart. That single moment wasn't created to stir old emotions or reopen forgotten memories. It was created to awaken a truth they had spent far too long overlooking. They finally understand that the universe never interrupts someone's path without purpose. Every perfectly timed sign carries an invitation, not to remain trapped in the past, but to step into a future that is quietly waiting to unfold. Your name became that invitation, and from the moment it appeared, your soulmate has never looked at your connection the same way again. What changed wasn't simply the way they thought about you. What changed was the way they understood destiny itself. They no longer believe meaningful connections survive because of chance alone. They now see that certain souls continue finding each other through moments too perfectly timed to ignore. Every lesson they have learned, every challenge they have overcome, and every unanswered question they once carried has slowly prepared them for this awakening. Looking back, they realize that even the periods of silence served a purpose. They created the space needed for wisdom to replace fear, for patience to replace uncertainty, and for trust to grow where doubt once lived. Only now can they appreciate why the universe waited until this exact moment to reveal the sign they had been silently asking for. So if this message has found you today, perhaps it is because your story is moving through the same sacred turning point. Somewhere, your soulmate has stopped searching for proof and started trusting what their heart has quietly known all along. They understand that your name was never just another name. It became the answer to a question they had placed before the universe. And once the universe answers with such perfect timing, it rarely leaves the story unfinished. The sign has already appeared. The awakening has already begun. Now destiny is simply waiting for the perfect moment to reveal everything that comes next.